Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning, the second here, hanging out with Thomas Manning. And you may realize we're not in the studio. We're not, well, actually, we got our home studios, which is what we've been doing some things from for quite a while. We're going to be back in the C19 studios some point. We're not sure when. I think Tim's been on like extended hiatus, but Tim's going to be bringing us back, we hope. But for this week, I am in an undisclosed coastal location. So, Thomas, it's part of the what did you say? Before we went on the air, there's a reason for that.
I mean, this is part of your task for the Impossible Mission Force, and
Exactly.
if you fail at your mission, then you will be disavowed, and we just really can't speak about it any further than that.
Exactly. But there may be some wardrobe changes. So just like in the Mission Impossible films, there's multiple locations. We may not be going to multiple locations, or we might. Who knows? We'll just have to see what the budget is for this before we wrap it up. But we do want to talk about the newest Mission Impossible film, Thomas, Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's a film we've been waiting for quite a while. In January 2019, Tom Cruise had announced that the 7th and 8th in this franchise that started back in 1996 would be shooting back-to-back with Christopher McQuarrie writing and directing both films. But a few things happened along the way, and we didn't get this film quite as early as we'd liked. But let me get you to dive in a little bit with any thoughts you have related to the background of it, or if you want to go ahead and dive into the review, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's important just to look at the history of the franchise as a whole. It started back in 1996 with Brian De Palma's first film in the franchise, and that was actually Tom Cruise's first movie that he produced, and that kicked off his production company. And from Brian De Palma, then you go there. The next film was directed by John Woo, who is an entirely different style of filmmaker than De Palma. And then you go from John Woo to J.J. Abrams in Abrams' directorial debut as a feature filmmaker. And then Brad Bird comes in 2011 with Ghost Protocol, and that was Brad Bird's first live-action film. He'd done incredible work in animation, obviously The Incredibles. But I think when Ghost Protocol came in is when the franchise really kind of struck the perfect balance of tones that it was looking for. And Christopher McQuarrie also worked a little bit on Ghost Protocol. And McQuarrie has since directed the past 3 Mission Impossible films with Rogue Nation in 2015, Fallout in 2018, and now Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2, which is coming soon. And, McQuarrie and Cruise, I just think they're the perfect couple. They're a match made in heaven. And,
Yep.
And I think what I love about McQuarrie as a storyteller is that he likes to make things as difficult as possible for the characters in his stories and for his protagonists. He likes to give them the most seemingly impossible decisions to make, most impossible problems to solve. And for Tom Cruise takes that and runs with it quite literally. Sometimes takes it and jumps off a cliff with a motorcycle and parachutes. Sometimes takes it and hangs off of a train fighting Isai Morales. So I just love these movies so much.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when we've had so many of these films, and to me there are certain franchise films that seem to become on autopilot after a while, and I've never felt that with this one. I felt in some way this franchise has found ways to continue to be relevant, continue to be fresh, and in some ways they've continued to take it up a notch. I think I've appreciated each one even better in certain ways. I remember going back to the first one in 96, and I really wasn't a huge fan. I love De Palma and love his creativity, but I just wasn't. There was something about that particular film that didn't really click with me. And then when Mission Impossible 2 came out, I said, yeah, I'm going to check it out. I love the Mission Impossible series, the TV series, and several versions of that series, by the way. but it found a way to just continue to bring me in, and it's done that. And a big part of that is Tom Cruise, and because he knows what he's going for, and he's willing to put his money on the line and his life on the line to make it happen. You had mentioned J.J. Abrams. Dead Reckoning Part 1 is the first film since Part 2 that does not have Abrams attached in some way. And honestly, he had stepped back from the director's chair and served as kind of a producer. And we're not missing a beat with Dead Reckoning Part 1. If you're looking for action, if you're looking for Cruise doing what Cruise does best, in doing his own stunts, Tom Cruise is a movie star. All the way, 100% a movie star. And he brings people into theaters, and we saw that he did that with the legacy Top Gun Maverick last year, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Expensive movie, estimated budget, I think $290 million is kind of what we're looking at with this, the most expensive in the franchise. A lot of locations on this film. There were a lot of hiccups in the filming of this, including casting challenges, and of course COVID really put a speed bump on this film. Thomas was originally scheduled to shoot in February 2019. They had a kind of a planned release date, I think, of this in 21 and Part 2 in 22. Of course, that didn't happen. COVID really challenged some things for that, as well as some other things as well. But man, the behind the scenes, if you want to look at the chaos behind the scenes and making this film come to life, there's a lot of it. And sometimes when that happens, that can impact what we see in that final cut. But man, I just walked out of this movie just smiling and going, man, I can't wait to see it again. And that was what I had hoped to feel with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And that did not deliver, but this one did, and then some.
Yeah, and you talk about just how many things that they had to overcome in this production. And I think making a Mission Impossible movie is pretty much comparable to actually the missions that Tom Cruise or that Ethan Hunt undertakes.
Yes.
Ethan Hunt and the Impossible Mission Force, because nothing goes to plan. You're always going to have to improvise. You're always going to have to find yourself working with resources that maybe aren't the best resources for the task at hand, but because this is like the best team of filmmakers in the world, they find a way to do it with whatever they have. And there's this mantra that Ethan repeats in the film is, we'll figure it out, or I'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. And it's just like, and he truly believes that, and I think they all truly believe that. The whole production crew takes that to heart, and they do figure it out. No matter what comes in their way, they find a way to, maneuver through it. And there's also something else I want to talk about, I guess, regarding the story and how relevant the plot is. One of the main themes of the film is the permeation of artificial intelligence in our culture and our society. And like you said, this was written and filmed 3 to 4 years ago. But really just within the past 6 months, we've seen AI become a huge talking point in our current culture. And that AI is one of the main foundations of the WGA strike that's going on right now. And it's going to be something that's going to affect politics in the years coming forward and just affect everyday life. But so this film was really prescient in a way, with the story that kind of predicted conversations that we'll be having at this exact moment when it released.
Yeah, that blew me away as well, because throughout the history, especially the history of science fiction, and then you go into espionage action films as well, AI has been there. I mean, you think about the Terminator films and artificial intelligence taking over. There's so many of them throughout the history of cinema and literature as well. But this one feels almost as if it were written yesterday. and because it is so relevant into what we're thinking and what we're talking about. The story is what it is, and you're right. Artificial intelligence. You could almost say that the AI, which is called the entity in this particular film, is the true protagonist. Now, while there are, you do have some that are kind of pledging allegiance to the entity, and we're having to, Ethan's having to face off with them. It really is the entity that is in control of things, and that was really an interesting take on this.
Yeah, and then there's this idea of this entity basically bonding with the main human antagonist in this film, the character played by Isai Morales, who is someone from Ethan's past who's caused him a great deal of pain, and someone who basically set Ethan on the path that started his IMF journey. And so I thought that was a really interesting take to kind of explore that the merging between humanity and AI, and it was really, really a creepy way to examine a villain and examine what we are approaching toward as a species, and obviously I hope it doesn't get to the point that we're seeing reflected in this movie. But I do think we should take warning and look at the things that are happening in this movie, because if we're not careful, stuff like this, or at least stuff comparable to this, could happen. Yeah,
and on the lower end of things, when you think about it, we rely on AI in some form or fashion every day if we're connected to technology. You look at your mobile devices, whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung or whatever it is you may have. You rely on forms of AI all the time, and when you ask Siri questions, that's there's not an actual human over there named Siri that's somewhere connected to you online. It's artificial intelligence, so we are connected to it and we are utilizing it. We're utilizing it for our good. But I think the question that comes out of this, or one of the questions that comes out of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, is what is our good, and who should be in control of our good? If it's humans have their own agenda, and you see that playing out throughout all the world's forces, wanting to find a way to control this AI that looks to be almost uncontrollable.
Yeah, but of course we know Ethan Hunt. He's always going to try to do whatever he can to adapt to the situation. And, he does his very best, but this is part one of part two, so his battle with AI is not complete yet. But you and I both talked about this, even though this was, one half of a larger story, it still did a really good job tying up the general arc of this part of the story. Whereas something like Fast and Furious X, or Fast X, however you want to title that film, that was the literal definition of a cliffhanger. Right. And then even Across the Spider-Verse, which you and I both loved, that was still pretty much just ended and just left you with so many questions. But this, it gives you a good idea of where the characters are in this moment and where they are with this conflict, but it's a good resting point, and you know that there is more to the story, but right now we're satisfied with what we got. So I thought of all the part ones of part twos that we've had over the past year, I think this is one of the most emotionally satisfying.
I agree. I came out going, I felt like I saw something that, sure, there's more story to tell, but I felt like this chapter or this half was complete in itself. I didn't feel like, wow, what the heck? What if I die within the next year or so before I get a chance to see the next one? I didn't feel that way, like I did whenever I still get angry when I think about Back to the Future Part 2 when I saw it in theaters, because it literally left me hanging. Still makes me mad. I still get steamed about that. But Now that I've had a chance to watch them all together, it's okay. But at that moment, man, I was not a happy camper. I want to mention, let me get it out. I want to mention, if you like the idea of kind of AI and how AI can really expand, and looking at how humanity connect and can work together or work against each other. There's a TV series on Peacock called Mrs. Davis, and it is well worth checking out if you are into that kind of stuff. Really impressed with what they've done and have been doing with this. It was launched back in April of 2023, but Miss Davis on Peacock, it's a sci-fi comedy drama, and it asks a lot of really interesting questions, much like this film, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Thomas, I love the action. I loved what Tom Cruise continues to bring to this. I loved the returning cast. Also loved adding Agent Carter to the mix as well. It was really great to see her, and she is a wonderful supporting acting talent, but her character, I loved her character so much as well in this. It's a film, physical stunts, big-time explosions, all that you would expect in a Mission Impossible film is there, and every mark hits perfectly for me.
Yeah, and like the versatility of the action set pieces, no surprise that there's a wide range. We started out basically, the opening scene of the film was in a submarine, and then about 15 minutes later, we're in the Abu Dhabi desert with this crazy shootout in a sandstorm. And then shortly thereafter, we're on the streets of Rome in this car chase filled with hijinks, perhaps handcuffs on a steering wheel, something along those lines. And then we have some saber duels, not lightsaber duels. That would be really cool if they were lightsabers, but they're regular sabers, which are still pretty awesome. And then, of course, the big set piece. Well, two big set pieces in the last 30 minutes that's leading up to the cliff jump. That's been touted as like the biggest stunt in cinematic history. It is definitely probably one of the best I've ever seen. And that delivers, even though we'd seen it in the trailers, even though we had an idea of what it was going to be, seeing it within the emotional context of the story in the film, it really did quite literally take my breath away, especially when the sound drops out. When it happens, it's basically 10 seconds of silence, which was an incredible sound design choice. And then that's followed by the train sequence, which was even wilder and just more, white-knuckled than I thought it was going to be. And, I was literally just kind of hovering the entire time I was watching it. I felt like I was hovering for another couple hours afterwards. And this is one that I can't wait to watch again and again and again. So
yeah, you had mentioned the big stunt, the one that we've been hearing about for so long, and we've seen it in the trailers or seen aspects of it. So in the film, when we see him on the motorcycle, and we know it's coming, it's one of those moments that even though you know it's coming and you're just waiting, I still found myself just in awe of what I saw on the big screen. And we were watching on a big screen for sure on this film. And you talk about the whole railroad fight scenes and the explosions that kind of go along with that. There's a lot of interesting backstory on making that happen. And so when you get a chance to see the kind of making of, or if you want to go and read some of the behind the scenes, you'll find that pretty fascinating, how they were able to kind of make that happen, and some of the challenges they ran into. They did end up using part of the there was a train track that was used in an opening sequence of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny that also has connections to this particular film as well. But man, I loved it. I loved it. As soon as I walked out, I was reminded that, this is why I love going to films in the summer. I'm looking for those emotional connections that almost take me back to my childhood, that will allow me to escape, enjoy some popcorn, enjoy the story, enjoy what's happening on screen, the action, the adventure, and the energy. And all of that was there tenfold for me for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yeah, and this had been a movie that we were talking about this on the drive to the theater, how back at the beginning of 2022, it was like a New Year's Day, there was a Twitter prompt that was going around, what's your most anticipated of the year? And I was like, without a doubt, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. And ended up having to wait another 18 months due to various delays, various COVID-related things. Finally here, and I can definitely say it was worth the wait, worth every second that I had to wait for it. And I'm just glad it's finally here.
Absolutely. It is something that we will revisit again and again and again. And it is a franchise that has continued to find ways to create success, create energy, and create audience anticipation with every film. And I think back to some of the other franchises. You talked Fast X earlier. I'll go check it out, but I don't get incredibly excited about what's next. And honestly, I've already forgotten the one that was just released a couple months ago. I've forgotten it. And that's not good. It's not good. But with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, there are a lot of unforgettable moments for me in this.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to give Dead Reckoning a solid A. And I wouldn't be surprised if that eventually goes up to an A+ after another watch or two.
I'm with you. Solid A rating for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Watch it in on the biggest screen with the biggest sound that you possibly can.
Won't you come and meet me at the movie?